এই যে
ready.
Assalamu alaikum. Here we are presenting the need for computer ethics to address the cultural and ecological impacts of computing. I am Shubhro Aditya. My fellow teammates Al Shahariar Priyo and Al Jaber Nishad. In this presentation, we are presenting this topic very briefly. Here are the contents: introduction, background, the computer as a product of Western culture, the linkage between information technology development and environment, IT and democracy, IT and economic development, the environment, the art chapter and computer ethics, and the last conclusion. Here is the introduction. Computer ethics is a fast-growing and increasingly important field of practical philosophy. We all know that the computer revolution will give rise to a revolution, and that computer ethics will become a global ethics relevant to all area of human life. Because that's why computer ethics has become the global ethics. The next point is the effect of computer revolution will experience differently by the people in different parts of the world. We know that the developing countries and the developed countries, the difference between these two type of countries are huge. The computer please go back to the introduction. Yes, the computer revolution marginalized the cultural tradition and caused environmental degradation. We all know that because of the developed country, the revolution will go forward, and that's why the cultural traditions will go marginalized. They are extinct, and because of the computerization, the modern technology comes, the environmental degradation is happens, that the global warming, natural disaster, natural resource depletion, etc., etc. There is only a small body of research in computer ethics that addresses these problems. It is very few solution of one of the solution exist in the world, that the research body is too small to research this computer ethics. That's why it is a great problem in this society to become a whole global village. Next slide, please. Yes. Background. The field of computer ethics is underpinned largely by the assumption that technological progress is linear and inevitable. There is no doubt about it. The computer revolution will affect the aspects of human life. We all know that everything we do in our life we depend on the computer. Technological progress is unavoidable and determines society rather than being determined by the human need, because we do not control the technology. On the view of the modern world, the technology control us. The World Summit on Information Society affirms that the information society should be founded on and stimulate respects for cultural identity, cultural, linguistic and diversity, traditions and religions, and foster dialogue among cultural and civilization. Next slide, please. Yes, the computer as a product of Western culture. The computer has its roots in 16th to 17th century in Europe, an era of increased machinization and increased focus on mathematics. The machine philosophy emerged, and more process of daily life were being machinized. The computer has been developed to achieve both high speed and high precision of automatic calculation and machine capable of automatic reasoning. The Industrial Revolution and its emphasis on increasing product through the machinization also has an impact of the development process of the computer. And moreover, the field of computer ethics is dominated by the Western scholars. That's why we can call the computer as a product of Western culture. Here, the linkage between the information technology development and the environment. There is a close relation between the technology and the development and the environment. And in this world, now we can see the development and the environment fully dependent on the technology, because technology development depends on the technology, and the environment and the technology impact on the environment. Information technology generally seen as an essential component of development. IT, that's information technology, enhance both economic development and democratic practice. If we see the higher world and the third world, we can see the difference. And in the first world, we can see the technology enhance the development and democratic practice. Developing countries apply information technology and join fast train of computer revolution, or they will be left behind. That's true. If we can see our country, that we are a developing country, we are joining the information technology in the fast train, that we are so far ahead of in term of technology. Now I am calling my teammate Al Shahriar Priyo to present his topic.
Thank you, Shubhu. Now I'm going to discuss about IT and democracy. The notion that information technology contributes to a more democratic society is based on the assumption that information technology is not discriminatory in that potentially provides equal opportunities for everyone. We all know the definition of democracy, that everyone has equal rights and equal self-belief, and they can apply to what they can achieve. So IT can implement the democratic part into the world. But it remains a concern for everyone to ensure the equal rights to get information, because information is not easy to get anyhow, because we know the value of information, and we also know the danger of information which can be misguided. Economic conditions of different parts of the world remains a concern to the barrier of this situation, as developing countries are not gaining the pace of development as the industrialized or Western countries. Bowers argues that the learning of moral norms is of higher importance to democratic decision making than it is to access information. That we can easily see that democratic decision is much tougher than to get the access of the information. Also, online communities are some kinds of participants are being there are behind the need of others, and responsibility they have one's responsibility to them. But it's still a big question: is democracy possible without shared geographic preference? But we cannot get the answer yet. Then IT and economic development. Development is based on the assumption that every society shares the same value that characterize developed societies, such as efficiency, speed, and competitiveness. Computerization is seen as a means to provide information, education, and economic opportunity to help people to overcome the problem of unemployment. As we know that unemployment problem is a big issue in all over the world, and we need to solve that. The perception that ICTs are necessary for economic development ignores that technology invents its own good, and we uh, all forget that assumption that technology all invents its own good. So basically, there is a deep connection between IT and economic development, and they cannot be achieved without each other. Then the environment, globalization of computer-based culture is not only a form of colonialism, but the culture assumption and lifestyle reinforced by the digital culture and ecologically problematic. The mechanistic philosophy renders nature dead instead of a living, nurturing organism. As a consequence, cultural constraints, which previously restricted destructive environmental contact and lost impact, and were replaced with the machine metaphor, as we are entering into the machine world, which are everything is controlled by machine, and we lose the naturism and the being of living the nature. Then there are connections between, though there is a contradictory between computers and natures, there is a connection between computers, cultural diversity, and nature. The parallel information uh, between nature and information is not accidental. Both are considered resources, and both are valuable resources indeed. As information is very valuable and nature also, because we cannot live without nature. And nowadays, information gets its higher price as we cannot live without information too. The ecological footprint of developed is heavier but not sustainable. It also raises questions that the world may on the verge of ecological disaster. As the machinery's development is heavier and easily to gain profit, but it's not sustainable as the nature. So we may be on the verge of ecological disaster. Computerization is instrumental in shaping the ecological problems we are facing because computerization decontextualizes knowledge and isolates it from the ambiguities and complexities of reality. Then we can assume that we reduce much complexity and ambiguities from our life, and we are getting things done faster and very easily nowadays, and we can have the access of machines and the different kinds of computers, informations, and also the internet. Besides focus on the advantages of ICTs, the negative consequences of computerization, such as rationalization of labor, which are observable in industrialized nations, must be avoided, as as the machine are implemented too much, people are losing their jobs, they're getting frustrated, and also machines take their places indeed. That the these types of development implemented uh, into the world almost about 50 years ago or 60 years ago, and now we are getting higher and higher machinery industrializations in all over the world for better profit and better production. The art chapter developed in 1987, the Bertrand Report or Common Future, which was calling for a charter for nature, fourth principles for sustainable development. After a decade of long participatory and consultative process, it was developed and finalized in 2000. The art chapter addresses four themes: respect and care for community life, ecological integrity, social and economic justice, democracy, non-violence, and peace. These four uh, are the main needs of the art chapter, which was addressed in 1987. And and now we are talking about art chapter and computer ethics. There is a connection between art chapter and computer ethics because computer directly connects to the development of third world country. It also prioritizes the idea of compliance and with ecological integrity and respect of nature, and stresses the gap between rich and poor that is poverty. The Earth Charter does not subscribe to technological determinism, but rather declares that the choice is ours. The choice we are making as individuals as well as communities determine the future. It is the role of computer ethics to guide ICT development towards a sustainable future. As we know that the computer cannot ensure the sustainable development, but they need to ensure it because we are heavily involved and our life is much dependent on it now. And here is the conclusion. There are many advantages from information technology. There are some dangers too. It would be desirable that emergence of a new global ethics participatory process, dialogue and exchange. It is more likely that Western culture, values and worldviews will be imposed through computerization. To avoid this computerization enforced adoption of a Western worldview, a broad cross-cultural dialogue is necessary. As we know that dialogue can be very useful to solve very complex matters, or indeed it's a very complex matter, and the world need to address it and try to solve it through a very useful and handful manner. So thank you. This is our presentation. Right. Thank you. So,